This is Marshall, and I'm on with Lana from Tucson, Arizona. And Lana has a YouTube channel, Just Us Tucson. And she has been making many excellent observation videos dating back to December of 2016. We're going to show you 7 of them, and I want to thank you for coming on, Lana, and of being wonderful help in getting this produced.
Thank you, Marshall. It's a pleasure and an honor to be interviewed by you. And I've enjoyed our time going over all this. It's very exciting and interesting, and I'm just very excited to be here.
Well, I'm glad you are. I've also enjoyed meeting your family, and this is going to be a very interesting series of observation videos for my viewers out there. So now what we're going to do is let's start with December 6th of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Please describe to the viewers out there why you shot this video.
Well, I have been studying chemtrails for the past 14 years. I saw a lot of chemtrails, and I stopped when I got to the store and decided to take a video of it. And then I saw this object and decided to move my camera around to see if it was a lens flare or if it was really there. And that's the first time I caught that.
Okay. And now let me show you the field of view so the people are going, well, there's another planet up there besides the object of interest, as everyone can see by looking at the field of view analysis with Starry Night. There's nothing to the sun's 1 or 2 o'clock position. Now, I took 3 shots from this frames out of this video, and they are number 1, and the next one is frame 811, and then frame 1227. I chose these because it shows some nice variation in patterns, but also you can see the cloud cover here moving in front of this object of interest as well. Now, when I do the gamma test, here is number 1. Here is 811. And here is 1227. After you did that one back in December of last year, did you decide to just continue monitoring chemtrails, or were you starting to look for an object of interest?
Well, I continued monitoring the chemtrails, and I also began looking for the object of interest, and I also began studying a whole lot on Planet X and Nibiru and, you know, the system that is coming in towards us. So it just kind of became a hobby of mine to go out and try to get a shot whenever I could, whenever it was a good time.
Let's move forward to January of this year on the 19th. So here we are on January 19th at 5:30 p.m. Mountain. Tell us about this.
Well, once again, there were chemtrails, and I decided to take another look at the sun and see if the object was still there.
All right. One thing I noticed is that in the video, you see a reflection of the second object and the sun on the car. Is that your car, by the way?
That's my car. Yes.
So can you see that second object reflection?
Yes, I can. Definitely.
So let's look at the field of view, and here we see nothing. at the 1 o'clock. Next up, let's look at the frame extractions, which are, that's frame 63, 513, and 859. Especially with 859, you really can see that reflection. And none of the flares, none of the other aberrations are reflecting on the top of your car. And when we look at the gamma, here we see 63. Here we see 513. Again, in the gamma analysis, you can see the reflection of the sun and the object of interest on your car. I find that very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in 859, we're seeing the sun and the object of interest being reflected on the top of the car.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. Very cool.
That was really cool, the way the light is reflecting off of your car. Well, that was great. Now, I know that you and I, in preparing all of this, you talked about a lot of videos that you shot from February through to September of this year. And those, you were really pursuing your interest primarily in the chemtrails. But in October, you jumped back into it. And the other ones you showed me, I mean, we were still saying the object of interest, but these are the ones that are really very clear, where the sky viewing has been good for seeing the object of interest. That brings us to October of this year on the 21st. So let's move forward to that.
Okay.
This video on October 21 was curious for me because you did this at 10:30 in the morning. And to be honest, for a very long time, by 10:30 in the morning, the object of interest in various observation videos I've analyzed is gone. You're not going to see it. But as the Planet X system is approaching, that has changed, and we're starting to see these late morning or early afternoon captures. So tell me about this one.
Well, I initially went outside to view the chemtrails and record them, and then I ended up panning around and showing that the sky was clear there, and then I got the sun and wanted to see if its little friend was there, and it was.
Say hello to my little friend.
His little friend.
All right. Well, let's go take a look at how the analysis came out on this.
Okay.
Now, field of view shows us that there is nothing that is in the field of view in the same location as the object of interest. So we're not seeing any other planet or star. Not that you really would at that time of day. Now let's go to the extracts. Here is frame 1715, then 2331, and 3277. Let's see how the gamma analysis comes out. Here, 1715, 2331. And I want you to notice, Lana, that that flare that's always moving around, the object of interest, maintains consistent coloration. But this is something with 5th generation phones that I've noticed that give a false positive on reflections. They don't disappear. What happens is they'll shift in color. So here you see blue, an aqua blue. This is what happens with lens flares when you gamma test them on Series 5 phones, 5th generation phones. Here we have the last one in this series, and that's 3277. It's interesting. I mean, I'm sure that there's going to be some folks that are looking and saying, I'm seeing more than one object of interest here.
Yeah, it looks like kind of towards the bottom of the sun that there's another orb, possibly, and then the second object the object near above the sun has rays coming off of it.
I'm sure we'll get some interesting comments from my viewers.
I'm sure.
Well, the 21st was interesting. And then 2 days later, on the 23rd, you had another video observation. So let's go take a look at that one.
Okay.
Now, this one you did at 5:15 Mountain Time local in your area.
Mm-hmm.
And I really found this to be a very interesting video. Talk to us about this.
Well, I was going for a walk with my son, and I always have my phone with me, and I found a good position and decided to take a shot. And I noticed that the second object had its own rays, and that's really the first time I really noticed it. And then I noticed an object, a light blue object above it. It's kind of faint, but there's a little blue dot underneath the lens flare, if you can watch it for a little while.
Yeah, I am sure there are going to be people who are going to comment on that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You had something interesting that happened in terms of there was an attempt by someone to take this down through an abusive and fraudulent complaint on YouTube?
Yes. I received a privacy complaint, and they posted this video in the complaint saying that that was their house, and I answered the complaint, and YouTube went in my favor. They ruled in my favor, so it went away.
Do you know the people that live in that house?
I've met them before, yes.
Okay. They probably don't know anything about any of this.
No?
All right. Well, good for you that you stood up for yourself and prevailed. All righty. So now let's do some analysis here. First off, let's get to the field of view. And again, in field of view, we are seeing there is nothing to that part of the sky that could be attributed to another planet. Let's look at the extracts that I did from that. And here is number 1, number 864, and number 4863. Now let's see what the gamma analysis looks like. There again, we see that dancing lens flare has shifted color during gamma analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we are with frame 864, and it's very steady. It's interesting when I look at the flares that are coming off.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing 2 different flares, one off the sun and one off the object of interest. I find that immensely interesting. And you can see it even more when you go into close-up here on frame 4863. And
Definitely.
this gives a pretty good range.
So what I noticed in that video, Marshall, was that the second object has its own rays that seem to curve backwards, almost just like what we see Nibiru looks like with the curving wings that it has. So that's what I noticed with the rays that come off of it.
The information, the visual information in this video makes me wonder if the fact that you were tracking what's happening with these light rays might have been one of the motivations for this fraudulent takedown attempt, which was obviously, having gone through that process and looked at what you faced, it was, in my mind, very clearly a disinformation operative trying to do something to throw a loop at you. And to your credit, you didn't shake. You're a tough girl. All right.
Right.
And Now, that was the 23rd, and let's move forward to the 26th of October. Oh, this is a real fun video. We're going to have some fun with this one.
Yeah, this one's good.
Now, this one you did on the 26th at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Is there a particular reason why you wanted to do this at 7 o'clock in the morning?
Well, I had gotten up to get some water and I just saw that the sun was rising and I wanted to get a capture of it. So I got my phone and ran outside, and I noticed that the sun was in a different position than where it should be rising.
Right.
And so I, shifting back and forth to where it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And then this object emerges above the sun, and I stayed on it, and it went from a crescent to a full sphere.
I see an awful lot of haze in this. So my question to you is, do you check weather reports on the days that you're making your observations?
Not every day, but for some reason this day I did. After I made the video, I went inside and got on the computer and saw that the weather app said haze, and it was the same color as the skies in this picture all over the app, and I've never seen that before on the weather app, but it was up there for a couple hours on the app.
When I was growing up in Arizona, you just didn't see haze like that. Is this something you see more of these days because of chemtrailing?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. It's hard to see where we are, but when you're driving south, you look at the mountains that are at the south end of the town, and there's just a white, it looks like smoke, just white smoke, like halfway in the middle of the mountains and down. So it settles. The chemtrails, they settle, and, they seem to have amped it up. Like, we haven't had many chemtrails when I shot this video, but ever since then, it's been almost every day. And there was one day where I couldn't even see where the sun was at all.
Wow.
There was no sunset colors. It was just very weird. You couldn't see any light. It just got dark.
Wow. Wow.
Very weird. That was last Tuesday.
Well, we're fortunate you got it this day. And when we go into the analysis, this is really going to be interesting. So first off, field of view analysis. Again, there's nothing else that could be mistaken for the object of interest. Venus is way above the sun, and at this time of day, you're not going to see that, especially with that kind of haze. Mm-hmm. So here we go with our captures, and the captures 5147, 7704, and 8394. Now, I chose this sequence because it shows the object of interest and how it is not obscured at the end of the sequence, but at the beginning of the sequence it is. And this is going to be things in the atmosphere you can't even see because of the haze. And here we have 5147. Then we have 7704. And if you're looking, you can begin to make out in this one where there are atmospheric issues around the sun that you're not able to see because of the haze. Mm-hmm. And here in this frame at 8394, it's fully exposed. But there was something else. Mm-hmm. The bird.
The bird.
The bird.
And wherever that little white sphere is, right touching the white part of the sun. That I've never seen before.
So, what we can see in the gamma is there's obviously clouds, but you're not seeing the clouds because the haze from the chemtrailing is so heavy.
Mhm.
But there was something that was noticed. There was a bird that happened to be flying in front of the field of view.
Right.
And this was very, very fast. Now,
Mhm.
you're shooting at 30 frames per second, which is standard for smartphones. And this 3-frame sequence is literally 3 adjacent frames. Each of these represent 1/30th of a second. That's how fast this bird is flying. Here we are where the bird is approaching from the right, going to the left, and this is frame 2394. Then in the next frame, 2395, it is passing just in front of the sun, and the wing is up in the beat. That was fortunate. And here is 2396. And so you can see the bird flying past. That's how quickly this occurred. Birds are fast movers. But when we go to do the gamma analysis on this, here's where it gets interesting. Here we're back at 2394. And you can see the bird entering from the right. Then the bird is passing in front of the sun in 2395. And you can see the lower left-hand side of the object of interest is being covered by the wing of the bird. Do you see that?
Yes, absolutely.
And
Amazing.
then when the bird flies past in the next frame, 2396, you can clearly see the part of the object of interest that the bird's wing covered. I'm going to go back and just kind of flip back and forth between these two. Here you have wing in front, and here you have bird beyond. Wing in front, bird beyond. You can definitely see that's what's going on.
It's very confirming.
Yeah, it's hard for folks when they're making observations. They have a nagging concern. Am I catching lens flares, aberrations? It's tough. You post a video and you get folks that are just blowing it out their backsides, shooting from the hip, trying to debunk it for some frivolous reason or another. And of course, lens flare, sundog, these are all the common lingos that are programmed into people who just don't want to evaluate it fairly. But with this one, it's very interesting in all of the work that you've done. 3 video frames, 1/30th of a second each, captures a defining corroboration for all your observation work.
Thank you. It was very hard for me to see that bird when I saw it go by. I was like, I have to slow that down. And I just was like, wow, it really just went right over it there.
Yeah.
So that was exciting to.
And it's really kind of
lens flare.
Pardon?
That wouldn't happen with a lens flare.
No, it wouldn't. And it's really hard with something moving that fast when you're in a video player like QuickTime or, DivX or whatever you're using.
Everything.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
Everything
just
in
have
that video was just perfect timing.
Pardon? Perfect.
Everything in that video was just perfect timing. The bird, the time I woke up, and just everything. It was just perfect timing.
A date with destiny. All right. Well, now let's move into, we have the next one, and that's just a few days ago. This was on the 1st of this month, November 2017. So let's take a look at that.
Okay.
This one you did on the 1st of October, 1531. That's 3:30 in the afternoon. And, you know, again, Lana, I have to tell you, I never would see the object of interest in all the years I've been doing this analysis. To see it at this time of day is just staggering. It really tells me this thing's getting close.
Oh, it's getting much closer.
Absolutely. So now this is kind of a crowded view. So talk to us about it. Tell my viewers how you came to shoot this video.
Well, I just stepped out in my backyard and put my phone up to the sky, and I saw the sun, the second sun, and I can see the little faint blue dot a lot better in this video. It's almost as if it's getting closer as well. It's showing up more, and the sun is a very weird shape, but the object of interest maintains its shape.
Because the object of interest is reflecting light, and whereas the sun is generating the light. As you're moving around, the camera is really having a difficult time compensating. And here I see that second object you keep talking about, that other one that's very faint and in the background. Almost makes you wonder, is that a moon in orbit around the object of interest, which would be a planet? If that's the case, and let's say that this is Nibiru that we're looking at, that faint object that's tracking with it further out could be Nibiru's moon, Farada. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. This is one of the few times I've caught it. I've started seeing it just recently, within the past couple months of making videos. It's shown up. So
Right.
I hadn't been able to see it before.
Right.
So it's like it's coming in closer, as it seems.
I agree with that. Well, let's get to the analysis and let me show you what we have there.
Okay.
So here we are on the field of view, and with the field of view, you're in the clear. There's nothing else there to interfere. Now, when I did the frame extractions, I picked 3 that really showed a lot of the things that are going on with your camera in its auto exposure mode. And this first frame that I extracted, that's 64, you can see our object of interest. There's, of course, lens flares. There's your little friend up there. Now, this one, 3754, is when you've zoomed in with the center weighted auto exposure, the sun here is just really making your camera go berserk.
Yeah, it's very, very bright. And it
Very,
looks like
very
a
bright.
square.
Here, I chose 7664 because this is kind of an intermediate view of it. You had the zoom, but you had cropped the sun halfway just to see it. And interestingly enough, in this one, there's your little friend up there. Now, let's take a look and see how the gamma comes out. Here we have 64. And the object to the upper right is the lens flare that's dancing around. Here it's moved down. We see it, it's aquamarine blue at frame 3754. And at frame 7664, it's just the object of interest and the sun. So it's hanging on.
Right.
I really was quite interested by this one because it's an excellent example of what smartphone auto exposure modes are going through. That's the reason why, you know, you get these people that go, you put the finger in front of it, put the finger, put the thumb, the finger, the thumb, the thumb, the finger, whatever. And it's ridiculous. It's a sucker bait test because the people that are debunking doing that, see, they know it's a lie. They know that with smartphone cameras today, you have autofocus and auto exposure modes. Auto exposure is what we call center weighted. So it's going to be exposing for everything in the frame, but principally putting the emphasis on what is in the center of the frame. And so when you start putting your finger or your thumb or whatever in front of the sun, what you are doing is changing the exposure from one end of the spectrum to another. And that's the reason why an object of interest will disappear when somebody's doing this test, is that it is disappearing because it's the auto exposure mode in the camera that's changing light values, and it's a whole different exposure setting. And again, debunkers know, they use this like a mantra because it's a sucker bait test that they throw at people. It's not an honest test.
No, even the sun disappears. So.
Right. We did this, did another video with Amber, and she did the test. Now, actually, when she put her finger in front of the sun, we were able to see the planet. We could see surface features on the planet. But that's because that her phone has a 4K camera, whereas your phone is just a high definition camera. This, I have learned, really makes a difference. These 4K cameras are picking up detail that earlier generation smartphones cannot pick up. So, don't bother with your camera with this thumb test and all of that. Like I said, it's just sucker bait. Now, let's look at the last one, because you had a second view that you took the same day, as I recall. This one was at 5:15, and wow, the exposure is like, whoa, 2 hours difference. Oh my word. And what's happening here?
Well, I was going for a walk with my son, and I was trying to get a capture of the sun before it set, and I found a spot in between two houses where it was just coming through, and I stood across the street and captured it. So
wow.
You can, at the light, haven't seen the light like that before, but
quite a startling difference. I found it to be most interesting. So here we can see in the field of view analysis with Starry Night, again, there is nothing that is in the field of view competing with that area relative to the sun. So with that, what I'm going to do now is let's take a look at the frames I extracted to see how that looks. I took frame number 1, frame number 856, and frame number 1381. I think this gives us a fairly good view of movement and how the light is changing. Let's look at the gamma analysis. Here, the gamma for number 1, the gamma for number 856, and the gamma for number 1381. And the lens flare is just up and to the right of the object of interest. And I find it's interesting the way it moved in, what's happening, how it's being able to get through the foliage that you've been shooting through.
Well, yeah, it's just like how the sun comes through the trees. The sunlight comes through the trees, and the second sun's sunlight comes through the trees. So I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that you caught it going through. And again, it's another situation where you have this really dramatic coloration. That's what I find interesting with all of these 7 videos that we're doing, Lana, is the sky, color, the conditions, time of day, 7 different ways You know, it's not where any of them are the same, whether it's with haze, without haze, morning, afternoon. And your
Mhm.
captures are very, very consistent. Now, you've been posting these, and what has been the most common knockoff or debunking attempt people are making to discount your videos?
People will say it's a lens flare or that it's Jupiter or Venus. Um, yeah, I've had a photographer actually tell me that it's not a lens flare. So
Mhm.
that was nice. But it's usually Jupiter or Venus that I'm getting people say that that's Jupiter or that's Venus. So,
They're doing that. Well, you know, there's a little thing called synchronicity, and it's really wonderful. Little opportunities pop up out of nowhere. And I remember you and I, when we were reviewing your videos and getting ready for this, you had mentioned this. And last night, I got an email from a guy who has a YouTube channel, ST Owner. And I got to share this with you because it really goes to this uh, shtick with it being Jupiter, Venus, something like that. I mean, as to the
mhm,
lens flare, we proved that with the bird. The bird
right.
definitely proves it's not a lens flare. But this one is going to be interesting. So let me fire it up.
All right.
The first thing you notice with Esty, and he shot this, is that this is after sunset. He has to zoom in order to get Jupiter and Venus. From an astronomy standpoint, I think it's really a beautiful sighting, a great observation. My
Mhm.
hat's off to Esty for this one. But it also goes to the point of saying, well, if we get to a full zoom out in the video, and here it's how is this going to be as big. Now,
Mhm.
and I'm just going to go back and get a frame from one of your other earlier videos and jump back to it and interpose it here.
Okay.
How does that compare in size relative to the sun with that?
It's much, much smaller. The objects that he captured are much, much smaller.
That's right. So, you know, it's something where I think thanks to Esty, we have a very interesting comeback to these debunkings, particularly since Esty is in Tucson, Arizona as well.
Hmm.
So they can't say, well, if you know this guy shot the video in Minneapolis and you're in Tucson, so it's
Yeah.
going to look different. Tucson is Tucson. You're in Tucson. Esty's in Tucson. So much for the Jupiter Venus debunking.
Hmm.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, what,
I also I wonder, if this object would be in a different position depending on where you are in the world, relative to where you are in the world. Would it be in a different position around the sun, or would it stay in the same position depending on where you are?
I think it's going to vary, and you know when you're looking at a sky program, you jump around. You know, typically like in Starry Night, I'll use zip codes, and so
Hmm.
you'll see the ecliptic, and the ecliptic is moving back and forth like a windshield wiper. And so,
Hmm.
the question is it in a fixed position relative to our horizon, which is the sky we're used to, or is it in a fixed position relative to the ecliptic, which is the plane of our solar system that is essentially the sun's equator stretched out to the 12 signs of the constellations? But what I'm starting to think, Lana, and you know, I'm asking myself this very same question, but more and more it strikes me that our points of reference, which would be the horizon or the ecliptic, are not necessarily working for the object of interest because it's doing its own thing. There's something different there. And as time goes on, we're going to know the answer to that question. Right now, we got to just put it in a Kerr canning jar and put it up on the shelf and wait for the universe to fax us a label.
To wake up.
There it is. So moving forward, what are you going to be doing with your channel?
Well, I am going to keep on making videos, whether it be about chemtrails or the sun and the second sun, or whatever else I can see. I've tried getting captures of the moon. I've got a few videos of the moon, but primary focus for the channel is definitely Nibiru, Wormwood, the second sun, just tracking it and videotaping it as much as I can, and in different locations, just trying to get it in different locations around town.
Well, I really am glad to see you doing the work you're doing. I love the integrity that you bring to this. You're an honest person, honestly seeking the truth and sharing it with others. And so to the viewers on my channel, please, the link is down in the description area. Go visit her channel, do subscribe, and let's support this young lady who's doing a really good job. And I hope to have you back on again.
Well, thank you very much, Marshall. I had a great time, and I'll keep working on those videos, and maybe we can talk about some more.
All right. Excellent.
All right.